Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Ibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show. Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, live on Substack, like we are each and every single week. I'm not even going to lie to you guys and say 5:30. You know 5:30 is the target, 5:38, 5:40 by the time the theme song plays. You already know what it is. We do have a little bit of leeway because the Mets game that was supposed to be a day game today got snowed out yesterday, so today's a night game. Tomorrow's supposed to be an off day. Now it's a game. A lot of craziness going on with the Mets. So all I ask is that you give myself and my co-host a little bit of grace, the same way you do to the MLB schedule makers. And I say that tongue firmly in cheek because the MLB schedule makers get a lot of flack too. And, you know, it's deserved, and it's probably deserved on our part too. Anyway, John Saponaro out here in North Hollywood, California. And that means my aforementioned co-host, Matt Ibanez, holding things down back in New Jersey, where Ibby, I'm actually unsure what the weather is in New Jersey and New York today. I know that it's warm and sunny here in Southern California today. It is anything but in Denver, where the Mets are scheduled to play with snow on the field, I think currently, or as of 20 minutes ago, in a couple hours. So, yeah, how are you feeling? And how are you feeling about the Mets' crazy cold game that they're about to play tonight? We both grew up playing baseball in the Northeast, man. Yes. I played in some cold conditions, but this one's not ideal.
And when you, like I've said in previous shows, when it comes to playing in games that matter versus games that are like, whatever, playing in the cold, it obviously makes it a little bit easier when you're playing a game with high stakes, whether as opposed to playing a game in May, freezing cold in Colorado, cleaning snow off the ground. I'm curious about what this offense could potentially do in this weather for the rest of the series. But I'm doing okay, John. Thank you for asking. Weather here is a little bit rainy today, but it's been better. Hopefully going to make a turn as summer continues to approach. But all in all, I'm okay. And I'm very interested in today's show because I think that after a week since we've been on, and we've put out some feelings, be it on Twitter, be it on some of our shorts or our TikToks about some of the things that have gone on that we'll talk about, namely Carlos Mendoza, some choices that were made, some turnarounds that have happened over the last week. I'm very interested to see where the overall vibes of the chat are. I put a poll on the YouTube side to see how people are feeling. I'll get to that in a moment, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see how people feel in general, because I'm a little conflicted, and I think we can talk through this and find out where I truly am when it comes to this team. But I will say this, the last week since we've last recorded, this team has played some better baseball. Does it change my overall feelings? We'll talk about it in a few, and I will adhere to what Carson is asking for. It's Wednesday, the red light is on, and it's time for us to have some fun.
Will you adhere to what Lazy Mary is saying in all caps? Take that Grimace shirt off now.
And as I said to him, as my retort to that in the comments, I said, there's always a theme Mary. And clearly, a focus of today's show, as you can see on the scroll, is about some homegrown Mets in question. And over the last week, the player that everyone associates with Grimace is going to be a discussion, that being Mark Vientos. We crushed him last week. We'll talk about him this week. It's a reason why I wore the shirt. But yeah, it's I did laugh at your comment though, Mary, saying how Mets baseball makes you grimace, which I thought was a fantastic way of putting things.
Absolutely. Speaking of the comments, let's mention everybody else who is here so far. We've got Brad, we have Armand, we have Ethan, we have my cat walking behind me during the show, which is something that happens pretty often. The aforementioned Lazy Mary, KP Clink, Douglas Barnes is here as well. We've got who else? Mike Laverty in the house. Tony HVAC is here with us. Pantrice. As I continue to scroll down, we already brought up one of Carson's comments. Joe DeMeo is here. Carlos Ortiz, Stevie Mack, and it looks like that is it. Oh, and Rosie coming in right there at the very end. That is it for the live comments. As it goes right now. You know what? I have to bring it up now. And now Joe Saturn coming in right there as we close out the roll call. I feel like until I say close out the roll call, I've got to mention whoever is in the comments. And we appreciate everybody who continues to join in. The number of viewers will continue to go up. The number of commenters will continue to go up as well. And I do want to say, Ibby, before we talk about the Mets, obviously Lazy Mary is back in the chat. At the end of the show last week, I said that Lazy Mary and I was going to open up my DMs. We were going to have a conversation. Lazy Mary and I did have a conversation. It was a great conversation. And I'm happy that we had the conversation. Honestly, sincerely, truly, it went really well. I think we understand each other. I think we understand, how it got blown out of proportion on each of us. We took onus and responsibility on how that happened. So Lazy Mary is back, and I welcome Lazy Mary back, and it is all good. And I bring that up not because anybody else particularly cares, although people did have, comments and stuff when Lazy Mary wasn't here, but because it's important sometimes to open up a dialogue and just have a conversation. And I do think that that is something that, even if it's 100 people watching our show, sometimes it's good. Like we can all just learn from that. And it's ultimately a positive. That's why I bring it up. So I don't know if you have anything to add. Chrissy says, I miss not Lazy Mary, which I guess is the drawback of Lazy Mary being here, is that the artist
we still don't have
Lazy Mary.
We still don't have 100% confirmation of not Lazy Mary being the actual Lazy Mary. For all we know, he might have just heard these things through the grapevine. We have no clue.
That's fair. That's true.
We have no clue.
I feel like for all the wrestling fans out there, the WWE fans, I feel like this is a real Chad Gable, El Grande Americano situation. And right on cue, not Lazy Mary is back. Oh man. Okay. I was hoping that that person would show up who is definitely not Lazy Mary.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Oh, that's great. Okay. I noticed that StreamYard is doing a new thing with the comments now, that they are grayed out once you bring them up. You can still select them and bring them back up, but it's showing you which ones we've shown on the screen already, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. Yeah.
StreamYard continues to make changes. I am not exaggerating. It feels like every 3 days. Every time we log in to do this show, there's
always something new.
Addition to this software.
Which is a good thing. I mean, it's a good thing when you're ever evolving.
Yes, but let us learn
get used to something
along the way. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about with our New York Mets. I think we should start, even though it happened right after we were done with our show basically last week. So it's a bit of old news, but let's start with the oldest stuff, get to the newest stuff. I think this week that's the most logical progression. And that is the it's a direct vote of confidence. I wouldn't say it's the strongest vote of confidence that I've ever seen in the Mets brass with regards to Carlos Mendoza's job status. The Mets, like you said, are on a little bit of a run right now. They've won 3 of 4, blah, 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 blah. They're playing some bad teams, but they are playing objectively better, and that's great. Ibby, how did you feel about the vote of confidence, and how do you feel about where the Mets are playing a little bit better over this last week, and whether or not that vote of confidence was deserved.
I'll knock off the easy one first, that being the way that they've been playing over the last week, over the last handful of games. It's good to see, and I'll talk more about in a little bit, like the things that really stick out to me, but it's good to see overall that they're winning games. And like you just said, they're bad teams. Like, you should be beating the Angels. They have a terrible bullpen. Their pitching is subpar. You should be beating the Rockies. Like, these are games that you should be handling business, because coming into the season, you look at those games, you're like, that should be a win. That should be a series win. That should be a potential sweep. Like, and it's good to see now, even though a lot of people could say, well, you're supposed to do these things. Like, yes, you are. But this team got off to such a god-awful start that it started to get to a point where it's like, who the hell can they beat? So it's baby steps at this point of trying to establish something. So winning these games is nice to see, because it seems like maybe we're getting back on a little bit of a track. Now, when it comes to Carlos Mendoza and the things that have gone on over the last week, there's still a lot of questions. And obviously, I put out like a near 2-minute video on our TikTok, as well as YouTube and on my Twitter, talking about, the decision to keep Carlos Mendoza. And I wasn't shocked, because I'd been saying that I don't think they're going to get rid of him. Everyone kept on saying he's going to be gone. It's like, I don't think they're going to get rid of him. I don't. Because if they weren't getting rid of him after that 12-game losing streak, they're saying basically he's staying for the time being. So I didn't think that they're going to come out right away and do an entire vote of confidence. Do I think that they should do that through MLB.com? I think that that's a little shitty, little cowardly as well, to do it through one person.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Not for nothing, though. Like, we all have our issues with him, but like, Andy Martino works for the team now. Like, if you're not going to feed that information to him to put that out, maybe that feels like too much of a puff piece, because you're going through like internal channels to a guy who works for the Mets. But like, one, what else is he there for? Two, where the hell has Andy Martino been otherwise? He was doing so much stuff leading up to the season, and it feels like now he's just been on like some kind of extended sabbatical. So it's just like, yeah, I don't know, man. I think running to like a national media coverage MLB.com guy it's the worst way to do it of all the ways you can do it.
I thought it came across like very, very cold in that sense. And like, we're probably not going to talk about this later on, but like, just to go on top of that cold feeling, like the Jonathan Lucroy clip that's been getting passed around a lot about how David Stearns handled things with him came across very cold. And then you see something like this, it's like, well, that's kind of cold too. Look, in general, on Carlos Mendoza, I still think that it was the wrong thing to do to stay with him. And I the more I look at him, the more I watch the games, the more I see the decisions that he's making. Like, have they won some games despite said decisions? Yeah. Have they been cost some games for some of the calls that he has made? 100%. And I don't know. I feel that it came across to me that they were not going to get rid of this person, because it's not so much that they're trying, like David Stearns is trying to shield himself, like everyone keeps on saying. I look at it more as, I think they're shielding every other candidate. Like, I don't think that they want to muddy the waters on anyone else, like that they really like, that being Kai Correa. It's not going to be Carlos Beltran because of all that's going on with him this summer. Andy Green is another one, because no matter what, it was always going to be an internal candidate. It was never going to be Alex Cora. I didn't even need him to come out and say that, oh, I'm staying with my family, like that whole Phillies report. Like, I knew the Phillies would go after him, but it doesn't shock me that a guy like that wants to wait until the offseason, because you can pick and choose wherever you want. You can have your staff. You can do whatever you please. You're going to be the top candidate. Why jump into something that's pure chaos at that moment, which at the time it was for both the Phils and the Mets being the two worst teams in baseball at that moment, with the losing streaks and everything. Like, the Mets lost 12 in a row. You have the Phillies at one point reaching 10 plus games lost in a row. It's like, why bother doing that? But then you look to what the Phils have been doing since getting rid of Rob Thompson and going with Don Mattingly, and they have turned things around a little bit. They're winning some more ball games. Like, they're looking like a team. Like, Bryce Harper has woken up. Like, they're starting to play better. Christopher Sanchez is pitching better. Like,
But
Sometimes
I'm told it doesn't matter. I'm told firing the manager doesn't do anything.
Sometimes a little thing like that can spark, and I think it's clear that they feel like, based off of the things that were said and what Stern said in the piece, as well as Cohen, like they believe that it is 1000% on the players, and they're not going to put the manager at fault here. But again, like if it's on the players, then you are putting it on yourself a little bit, that being Stearns, because you're the one bringing said players in. And I don't know. I just think that 75 to 85% of the tenure here for Carlos Mendoza has been very shoddy. Like from what we've seen from him as a manager, outside of Grimace being the only, positive. Granted, it's great to get that far or whatever, but if you take that out, it's not really pretty. So I don't know what we're holding on to here, because I don't think he's inspired that much hope as someone that can take you to the next level, or to even truly get you to where you want to be. Because the second you've added more responsibility, more talent, more expectations to the team, you see what the result has been, and it hasn't been good at all. So why should I believe that that person can be the one to get this team to where it needs to be, which coming into the season was being a World Series contender, to coming out of the gate and winning, 13 of 36 games?
Look, when I say, and I've been saying this for the last several weeks, that Carlos Mendoza's tenure has been more bad than good. He's been a bad manager, a poor manager for most of his tenure. That's not hyperbole, to your point. He has presided over bad baseball teams. And people keep saying this stuff about the old core. And I'm so tired of SNY and whomever else interviewing these guys every time they come to town or look at New York or fly over New York or whatever. But Ibby, part of this issue, oh my God, does Soto and Lindor get along? Did Lindor and McNeil get along? Did this person get along? Part of the thing there is Carlos Mendoza's leadership, or the lack thereof, being able to shield some of the guys from these conversations. You know that I'm a recovering Jets fan. And look, Rex Ryan was not a great head coach, truly great defensive coordinator, great bombastic personality, loved by the media, understand all of that, had his faults as a head coach. But one of the things that Rex Ryan did really well, and I know that baseball managers are not football head coaches, but one of the things that Rex Ryan did really well while he was here is he recognized what the Jets were perceived to be, and he took the ownership on himself, shielding the players. And I thought that that was a really smart, really impressive way to handle the New York media with a team that has been long perceived as LOL Jets, as little brother, as a piss poor franchise. A lot of the same things that you could apply to the existence of our Mets. And so I want a guy who is going to stand up there and have answers and show leadership and show accountability and shield his players. And he has done none of the above. And by the way, they are a losing team while he is in charge. Now, yes, you're right. It is mostly on the players. I see the comments from the people in the chat that are saying it's the players and then it's Stearns because he assembled the roster. Or even if you want to blame Mendoza, that partially that blame goes on Stearns because Stearns hired him. All of that is true. But when you watch this team, and we all do, we live and die, we watch all of the games, as many as we can, whatever. You guys who live back east, you go to as many as you can. You're going to tell me that there is not something amiss with this roster, and that there's not some kind of problem where no matter how talented the players, we just can't seem to get the most out of them, Ibby. Whether that player is Pete Alonso or Bo Bichette, whether that player is Jeff McNeil or Marcus Simeon, whether that player is player X or player Y. And I think part of that falls on the manager. And if it's not that, then what else is the manager's job? And I've said it, and I'm going to broken record it again here today. The manager's job in baseball is to manage the 26 personalities. And I just alluded to all the ways that I don't think Mendoza is good at it. And then the in-game X's and O's job of a manager is to manage the bullpen. And we all know, hell, Adam Ottavino knows that he's not good at that either. So then my question becomes, what is he doing that is helping this team win? Which is why I'm going to jump into a couple comments really quick. Rosie says, Mendoza isn't a great manager, but he's not the problem with the team. That's the Pobo who put together a roster that makes no sense whatsoever. There are not puff pieces, not Mets media, not SNY, not Ron Darling, like national media outlets, talking heads, baseball people, baseball writers. Ibby, they picked the Mets to win the National League. So I don't want to be told by anyone that this roster makes no sense whatsoever. And I'm not coming at you, Rosie, when you say it. You're just the one who brought up the question. You're not the only one who is saying it, but you feel that way because the team is underachieving. You feel that way because of the injuries. Now, can we criticize the injuries and say that bringing in all of those injury-prone players maybe didn't make a lot of sense? That's a different topic.
Different story.
But to say that this roster construction, if healthy, makes no sense whatsoever is objectively just wrong. It just is. The roster construction makes sense. It is not worked out and guys have gotten hurt. And it's tested the limits of their depth to the nth degree. Some of that is bad luck. Some of it you could say, well, you know, did you expect Luis Robert and Jorge Polanco and this guy and that guy and all these guys who have a lot of injury time on their baseball career to be healthy? That's a little bit on you. Sure. But the assembly of the roster does make sense. And the last thing I'll say to you, Ibby, before I toss it back over to you, is Lazy Mary said Mendy throwing Harrison under the bus was embarrassing, to which Ethan says Mendoza throwing the video guy, who is Harrison, for those of you who don't know, under the bus tells me the kind of person he is. Zero accountability. That's reflective in the team record and overall effort of play. I know I've been talking for a while. I just want to say this, Ibby. I used to work for MLB. I worked in a position where I was fortunate enough to be in some of these replay rooms. I was never in the Mets replay room. I've never met Harrison, and all of the teams go about it slightly differently. But I had the ability to just not really interact, but to see how teams ran replay rooms. They don't have a lot of time. And yes, most teams lean on their replay individuals, and there's usually 1, 2, or 3 people kind of tracking that stuff. They lean on those replay individuals to tell them whether or not something is worth a challenge. That is true. So is it Mendoza's fault, quote unquote? Probably not. Not to the highest extent of the truth. However, he is the manager of the team. The buck needs to stop with him. To turn around and even mention Harrison's name is embarrassing, to use Lazy Mary's word. The other part of it is, Ibby, and you know this because you played baseball for a long time, there are things that happen on the field that maybe you don't need your replay guy to let you know. I play men's league softball. We still sometimes appeal to bases to see if people tagged up and left early. I'm sure that you've dealt with that when you've played baseball without video replay. And sometimes umpires call people out anyway. So you're telling me that on a timing play with a dugout full of people looking at the field, that no one else and your pitcher pointing and Bichette pointing, that Carlos Mendoza didn't even think like, you know, I know they're emotional. I know competitors compete, and I know guys point at stuff when they think, and they could be wrong. But you're telling me nobody else saw it enough that you have to throw Harrison under the bus? I agree with Ethan. That tells you everything you need to know about the lack of accountability. Now, I will not call into question the person that Carlos Mendoza is because I don't know him personally. But from what I've seen, Carlos Mendoza, the baseball manager, zero accountability, zero guts, zero leadership, and a bad baseball manager, full stop.
Looking at the comments and seeing people like Tony HVAC and Lazy Mary mentioning how during that game you had players, as you just mentioned as well, like legit pointing out, and McLean's pointing it out, and you have people on the bench and Terren's pointing it out. It's like I thought it was really shitty to throw the guy under the bus, and it felt like as the things are spiraling, it's like you're trying to almost deflect some of the constant blame that you're getting, and you want to put it somewhere else because you're tired. It's almost as if like you're tired of hearing about these things. I was talking with Keith from Shea and Sons over the weekend, and we were talking about the body language of Carlos Mendoza in these post games. And obviously there's going to be a difference when it comes to winning and losing, but a lot of the times he's just coming across as a guy that is almost like going through the motions, almost knows that he's like a dead man walking in that sense. And, overwhelmed, beyond stressed out, like all these things. But again, this is what comes with the territory when you choose to be a part of a New York franchise, especially the New York Mets. And this stuff is going to be thrown at you. So instead of you wearing it and saying, like, I screwed up, you take it upon yourself to throw the video guy under the bus. Like, I know, like, in there, he also like, oh, he's one of the best and this and that. Like, I get, like, you can, like, try and cover it up a little bit, put some makeup on it or whatever, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even want to hear his name in that sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I don't even want to hear you use that excuse.
No, I just, in general, it was shitty. It pissed me off because it's something that's happening right in front of you, and you should be able to see this. And I would have gone with my players, and that's not Monday morning quarterbacking either. Like, when I have multiple people on the field, it's one thing if it's like the player complaining that they were out at first because it's just like the one person and they think that it was that and everyone else is kind of quiet. But this is multiple people on the field looking at something, and you're focused in one area and everyone else is focused in the other, and they're telling you this, and then you still said, no. And it comes back to bite you, and you lose that game. And that sucks because you're coming off of that big win, vibes wise with Mauricio the night prior and the home run, to then lose the way that you did in extras in this one, which was just a heartbreaker in that sense. They cleaned it up the next day and got the win to win the series, but still, all in all, it's shitty. It's lacking accountability, like we said, and just another feather in the cap of Mendoza when it comes to just not being up to snuff when it comes to this job.
Yeah, there's a lot of great comments coming in, and Lazy Mary saying multiple sets of eyes, meaning everybody in the dugout looking out at the field in different places versus one set of eyes on several monitors or monitoring several replays, which I think is a great point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good ones in here. I'm going to give Lazy Mary credit for a bunch of these because I start them off. The whole dugout told him to challenge the Soto ground ball too, which was the following day when the first baseman had to throw his glove to the pitcher to get the out. No challenge there, and he looked safe too. I would say, one, I agree, less of an egregious one because I don't know if there's enough there to overturn that. It didn't look like the guy had control, but that one's going to be trickier. It's ticky-tackier. But the other one, I mean, look, we have the benefit of replay watching it on TV, but like, again, if you're playing that game, that's obvious. It's egregious. If you're in the dugout,
Yeah, the big thing really is it came across as, to me, like in that moment, like it came across as, it's early, McLean's on the mound, not a big deal. Like, that's the way it came across to me, where I'm sitting there and saying, no, every freaking run that you give up feels like 5 runs for this team. And that's the way that it had been feeling over the last week at that point. So it's like every run counts, and we're just throwing this one away. And it came back to bite you, which sucks because you want to get these wins. You got to start stackpiling some wins because you dug this big of a hole, and just like giving that one away. It's like, goddamn, man. Like, I know. I hate the term punt, and everyone always throws it out there, but for this season, it does feel like you get that sense when it feels like the Mets are giving away a game or punting a game because of what their decisions are.
We've talked about it on this show a lot to start this season. Unfortunately, we don't like to use that word punt, and I don't think organizations punt as much as fans think they do.
I agree with that.
But I think, and this is part of my issue with Mendoza, I think he manages for tomorrow more than he should.
I agree with that.
And if you want to call that a version of punting, now I don't think he's not trying to win today, which I guess is the ultimate definition. So punt maybe isn't a fair word, but he manages for tomorrow way more than he should. So for people who want to say, oh, maybe the Mets are just punting this season, I don't think the Mets are punting a season in May. But I think you could take that criticism and you could say Carlos Mendoza punts too many games. I think you could definitely say that. And I was going to bring this up in a different context. I know Joe DeMeo was here earlier. I'm not sure if he still is. I listened to the Mets pod yesterday when their episode dropped, and Connor was saying something very similar. And Connor also said that, yes, Mendoza has not been the biggest problem this season, but over the last week, which is the time span that we're now talking about, Carlos Mendoza has cost his team some games. He said you can make the case that he's been the biggest problem over the last week, or one of the biggest problems. And we talk about, and I don't want to keep, harping on this one situation with the runner scoring and the timing play, but he made a great point that you can't have this like law of predetermined outcomes, right? Like, oh, if the Mets challenge that and it gets overturned, well, the Mets lost by 1 because they tied the game and they went into extras, and maybe the Mets just win that game 3-2. Like, yeah, it's hard to say all of that's going to play out exactly the same way if you take a run off the board in the first inning, because maybe none of that happens and the Mets wind up losing by 10. Who even knows? But Ibby, the reason why I think it's egregious, we go back to the conversation of, can you follow the thought process, whether that's from the front office or the manager or whomever. And if you just compare those two scenarios, the two non-challenges, one on the timing play and then the other where the first baseman tosses his glove, I think it's much more egregious to not challenge the play that takes the run off the board when you know that your team is having a hard time scoring runs. If it were me, I would have challenged that almost no matter what, on the off chance that we could save our team one run. And again, that's where the thought process is flawed. And that's why I have a problem with Mendoza.
Yeah, just looking at some of the comments here, and Joe coming in here saying, how it was egregious not to challenge the play where the run is scored. Can't deny that. Carson, big one. Even if you lost challenge, you try. Exactly, like that. That's the whole thing here. You're fighting. I don't want to say it's tough to say you're fighting for your life in May, but you're trying to dig out of a hole, and everything matters. So roll the dice in that sense. Like, why not? And Carson's been saying this a lot on his show. On Mets Weekly, saying, here's my problem with that argument. If Mendoza is not the problem, is he part of the solution? Same argument with the old group of players they shipped out this winter. Like, I don't know if you're trying to become something more, and this is why I'm so confused about the fighting that they've been doing to protect Mendoza. Why are we fighting so much to protect him when he hasn't really been all that great? You're coming into the season with huge expectations, talking about, the owner coming out saying how last year was a disgrace and how things ended and things are going to be better moving forward. And I had said during the offseason of this show how it was important for Mendoza to get off to a hot start, and the Mets in general get off to a hot start, to A, take off some of the pressure that's being clearly put on them by the media, but really B, to take off the pressure of Mendoza, because the second he gets into a hole, he's going to be put in question because everyone else was fired, everyone else was shipped out, and now you become the one constant, which I've been saying, which Carson's been saying, which is what you have been saying. Like, you're the one constant here, yet we're still defending him. I feel like I don't know if this is stubbornness on David Stearns' part, where he feels that, this is the guy that I picked. This is what's going to work. This is going to end up working. I think I can say with confidence that to this point, it's been very mediocre. And we as Mets fans have experienced plenty of mediocre. Like,
I mean, poor.
Yeah, I mean, it's we've seen more than enough up and down as a fan base to know when something is very which is why I put that as an option as well about how you're feeling about the team. Like very like it's whatever. But I feel very like, I don't know, man. I feel like this team would be better off with a new voice. I know for some that might seem like a cop-out because it's usually the players, and I agree, players have to play. But I feel at this point, man, we're how many games into the season? 40-plus games into the season. I 50-plus games, whatever. I feel that I can count out at least maybe 5 games, I think, Mendoza has cost this team. So that matters. That's a huge difference at this point.
Yeah, it's massive. Again, I don't know how many managers are going to account for wins in Major League Baseball. I've brought him up before. I think Terry Francona is a guy who is going to get you some wins just by the way he navigates a game, the way he navigates a series, the way he navigates a season. I think Terry Francona is going to be worth some wins. There are a couple other guys, I've never watched him super up close, but I think Alex Cora is close. People were telling me he's overrated. I think he's closer to the Terry Francona side of the spectrum than he is the Carlos Mendoza side of the spectrum. Let's put it that way. Ibby, I agree with you. What you said before, I think it's spot on. I think the Mets' lack of want to fire Carlos Mendoza, or perceived lack of like not wanting to fire Carlos Mendoza, is about protecting other people in the organization and not David Stearns. I don't think David Stearns is protecting David Stearns. I think you're right. I don't think he wants to thrust Kai Correa, who's never been a manager, into an absolute shitstorm in the shitstorm capital of the world.
Yep.
So I think you're right about that. Look, the rumors about Beltran wanting to get back in, wanting to, kind of figure this out and get his shot again. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if Beltran's moved on. I have no idea. But you're right. You can't ask a guy who's going into the Hall of Fame, who's having his number retired.
That'd be a nightmare.
Who's also never been a manager, to absorb this kind of blow. And that's why, when Stanley says, what about the rumor that the Mets approached Dusty Baker for manager, to which Lazy Mary said this team would give Dusty Baker dementia, which is hilarious.
He's 100 years old.
But what about the rumor, Ibby? If you are going to go outside of the organization, I'm not saying that I would do this. I'm not saying that this is a great idea to helicopter somebody in who has no goddamn clue about your team and your organization.
Right.
But if they are going to fire Carlos Mendoza and they're going to do it earlier rather than later, like this isn't like you know what? We realize that we're out of it. It's August 15th. The trade deadline's passed, whatever. Kai Correa can manage this team, play out the string, whatever. If they wind up doing it before the trade deadline, and they're a team that's hovering around 500 and they're starting to make a little bit of noise and they're starting to claw their way back. Dusty Baker is the type of person that you would go outside of the organization to get to finish out the season, where you're like, I don't know, man, you've done this before. You've been through the wars and maybe you can figure it out. It's kind of, I can't think of a more modern example than this, but it's kind of like Jack McKeon when he took over the Marlins. I know the situation is not exactly the same, but I think you're going and you're grabbing a baseball lifer who's had success as a manager, which is key, and say, listen, we've got a fucking mess. We know we're asking a lot of you to try to fix this mess, but we're also not going to hold it against you if you can't. And your legacy is such that it's not going to really tarnish it if you don't. And so I don't put a lot of stake in the rumor, but I will say that is the only thing that makes me like perk up and go, maybe it's true, is that because of the way the Mets coaching staff is currently constituted, if you're going to fire Mendoza, a move like this is actually the most logical. Again, I'm not saying it's true or I have any information to that end, but it's not the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, given the state of where the coaching staff is.
The way that they've handled everything up until this point, like when I saw that, I look, I have no problems or issues with Al and everything. Like, about putting stuff out there. If he has sources, so be it. But obviously, it came out that Dusty denied it, apparently. And I was confused by when I first saw it, because it's like the only thing that I looked at, I was like, okay, maybe that would be, the Astros when they were in the shit when it came to AJ Hinch and everything, and then bringing in someone on a World Series contending style team to come in and try and right the ship, Dusty Baker. Like, okay, that made sense. That was also before the season started. And like you can build around that a little bit. Seeing or thinking that David Stearns was going to do this in season when he wouldn't be able to really pick his staff, which I think someone like Dusty would want to pick his own staff, because he has been, like you said, baseball lifer, wants to be around people that he trusts. And as he's getting older, obviously, I would think he wants to have the best people that he can have around him to his liking. I don't know. I thought that it came across very nonsensical in the way of, like, this is the same guy that got rid of Buck Showalter. And you could say that Dusty Baker has had more success than Buck Showalter, but I just felt that it was always about getting someone in here that was more analytically driven, more willing to play ball, if you will, with the front office, and make the ideas that they bring forth work in the sense of baseball today. I think that this team also thought that Carlos Mendoza was going to be the next Alex Cora, of being great with players as well as meshing in with the analytical sense of the game. I think that's what they thought, and I think that that's not what they have gotten to this point. And maybe that's why they do go after an Alex Cora in the offseason. Who knows? But at the moment, like, I just thought that it was odd for Al to come out with that. But again, if his sources were true, and if Dusty's now lying about this, who knows? But I just thought it was odd from a sense of, it came across as something that would be against what David Stearns wants, which is younger, more analytically driven, more play ball in the sense with what you're doing as a front office, as opposed to the old school way of thinking.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to just beat on the guy, but I did want to bring this up from Burnt Toast when we're talking about inefficiencies of Carlos Mendoza. And Burnt Toast says Mendy also burns his bench too early. I agree with that. I mean, how I felt about the MJ Melendez thing. We talked about it last week, but maybe even if you use just MJ Melendez as the case study, look, you're swapping out. I understand. Again, and I'm not sitting here trying to be fucking head of the MJ Melendez fan club, but he's been one of the most productive hitters on the team in a very small sample size. I understand that he has not in his career hit lefties well, and that in certain situations, you're going to want to move him out to get a guy in there who can hit a lefty. But you look at the other options, Ibby. I mean, it's Austin Slater. It's Andy Ibanez. It's Eric Wagaman for a day or whatever. These are not guys.
That's my family. Take it easy.
Yeah. With all due respect to you and yours. No, but like these are not guys who were brought in to mash lefties. These are guys who are fringe major league players. Yeah. So much so that if you bring one of those guys in and then they go to a right-hander, now you're like, okay, bro, I mean, so what? Would you rather just try to ride the lightning here with MJ Melendez lefty on lefty? Or do you want to see Austin Slater facing a guy who averages 98.3 on his fastball? Like, you know what I mean? Like, give me the MJ Melendez at bat and come what may. Because one guy keeps doing it despite what we think he should be doing or not. And these other guys are, with all due respect to major league players being better at baseball than I was, they're spare parts. Like for him to come out here and say Austin Slater is here to hit lefties. No, bro. Austin Slater is here because 9 people are on the injured list. Francisco Lindor, Luis Robert, Jorge Polanco, Ronnie Mauricio, Mike Talkman, Jared Young. How many more people need to get hurt before you and me play? Austin Slater's not here to hit lefties. Austin Slater's hit here because he won the fucking lottery.
Yeah.
So, like, don't tell me he's here to hit left. Listen, if you had, for all his faults as an aging player, if you had Paul Goldschmidt on the bench and you're like, look, we went to Goldschmidt there. It's like, yeah, Paul Goldschmidt's a shell of his former self, but last year he mashed left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
So if you're like, listen, Goldschmidt won an MVP. He's here to hit lefties. That's what he does. We went to Goldschmidt in that spot. I'd be like, all right, Austin Slater. Austin Slater ain't here to hit lefties. Austin Slater is here to keep part of the bench warm. Like, stop it.
Well, as Tony just said in the comments, like he's telling you in that sentence alone that it's not coming from him then. And look, that very well could be a situation where Stearns and the front office is playing the numbers and saying this guy hits lefties. You should put him in situations that he can hit lefties because that's why he's here. Maximize what you believe that this player can do for us. Put him in spots to succeed. Otherwise, there's no point in having him, which I think kind of fits the whole, shuttling in and out of all these DFA candidates that this team has, by putting them in spots to see if they can succeed. Now, did I think it was funny the other day when they rolled out an outfield that I thought was so pathetic of having, Andy Ibanez in left, Tyrone Taylor in center, and Austin Slater in right field for a $350 million club? Like, I felt like I was watching the 2011 Mets. I was getting nightmares just thinking about it. And they ended up having a solid game. I think that was the Saturday game, the one that they ended up losing. But like they as a unit did okay. Slater had a couple of hits and Ibanez had the sac fly or whatever. Like they did okay, but still, like things like that should not be happening. So when you hear stuff like so-and-so is here to do this job, it's like, come on, man. It's like, realize the name you're saying before you say that sentence. Austin Slater. This isn't some star. This is, as a guy that, Lazy Mary just said in the comments, this is a guy that was DFA'd within your division a week ago. And he was DFA'd for a reason. And the Marlins have been playing some good baseball. And they got rid of him. So it's just like, come on.
I mean, look, again, no one's going to mistake MJ Melendez for a superstar, but at least MJ Melendez is a guy who was a top prospect. Like Austin Slater is he's spare parts. I don't mean to be like that disrespectful, but it is what it is. Odd villain. Austin Slater was working for JP Morgan a week ago. Burnt toast. Austin Slater sold me a Hyundai Kona. Joe Pereno. I'd rather see AC Slater in right field. At least he hits preppies. Like, dude, like, come on.
God.
That is the problem. That is it. That is like, you cannot be putting these guys. Listen, when you have injuries, that you're going to start to push the limits of the depth that your organization has built. And the Mets have had so many injuries that Vientos needs to play every day, even though up until recently he hasn't deserved it. Brett Beatty has to play every day, even though up until recently he hasn't deserved it. That's the way the cookie crumbles, right? You have to, on your 26-man roster, have Vidal Brujan and Austin Slater and this guy and that guy, because you have to field a roster. I understand that, but you should not be going out of your way to give these guys at bats. Now, I also understand in a long season, Ibby, guys have to get rest and you want to expose certain guys to certain things. But if it were me, I would just be running these guys out there every day, unless it's like ridiculous. Like, you're going to tell me that Carson Benge can't hit a lefty to the point, and I know Benge is basically playing every day, but I'm just using him as the example.
Right.
Carson Benge needs to be protected so much against lefties that we have to get Andy Ibanez in the lineup? No, dude.
Right.
Now, if you want to protect Benge against, prime Clayton Kershaw, that level of lefty, then sure. Then I understand you get an all right-handed lineup, and the right-handed lineup looks like whatever it looks like. But you're going to take these guys out, whether it's Melendez, whether it's Benge, whether it's whomever, and then you're going to go to just a worse baseball player because of handedness. But then, and this is what frustrates me, and today's not the day to pick on Brett Beatty, Ibby, but Brett Beatty don't come out of these games.
Right.
Brett Beatty faces every lefty. Doesn't matter. Now, if you have a different, earlier in the season, he was coming out for Vientos, which makes sense because one of those guys was on the bench, and you have a guy who's better against, like Mark Vientos should be playing against left-handed pitching. Everything about his career shows you he should play against lefties. So that's not an issue. But now that Vientos and Beatty are both in the starting lineup, Beatty plays against everybody. And you bring in a lefty, Beatty stays in the game 9 times out of 10. MJ Melendez, though, he's batting third and he's out in the 5th inning. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Especially
when it comes to what they've done, like it's focusing on what's going on in the season. Someone just mentioned, like, Melendez gets hot, and because he's gotten hot to a point where it's like he should be in the everyday lineup, like screw the matchup, screw lefty righty, like let him hit by making him, a 5 inning, if you will, hitter, or taking him out in these games or not playing him. You've essentially cooled him off to a point where it's like, what are you doing? Like, this guy has an OPS over 1,000 at one point, and you're taking him out of games. Whereas Beatty, who, I've defended on this show before, and I joke about a lot in a lot of chats or whatever, but I'm not dumb to realize that the output that he's been having requires more questioning than that of Melendez. So it's kind of like, I agree with you. It's like, what are you doing? Where is the feel here where it's like Beatty hasn't been hitting, Melendez is hitting? Well, I'm going to keep Beatty in, and I'm going to sub out Melendez. Why? Like, ride the hot hand. Like, that's what you need to do in spots like this.
I know somebody else brought it up, but like MJ Melendez in that one game where he laid down a good bunt against the lefty, and then the next time up against the lefty, they took him out of the game. And it's like, look, I'm not saying you want your third place hitter or wherever he was hitting that game, third or fourth, whatever, to be bunting all the time. But if he shows that he can bunt,
that's a good point,
and he can have a productive at bat and he can stay in the game, then burnt toast. Sarcasm here. You don't need to get Tyrone Taylor in for defense in the 6th inning. Also, nobody wants to have everybody wants, like, everybody's conversation of people who are critical in the wrong areas of the Mets. Like, they're still focused on the fact that, they don't think Bo Bichette could play third base, and nobody's focusing on the fact that Tyrone Taylor doesn't look the same on defense. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, people are like, they're 6 months ago, and they're just now they haven't caught up to the real world stuff where you're like, look, man, Tyrone Taylor coming in here and playing defense isn't what it was. Is he better than some people? He is, but I want to jump back into the comments really quick. This is a great one. Juan Soto is the leader of D12 right now. That is so.
That's a good one.
So good. I don't know that I don't know that that's the best comment that's ever been on this show, Ibby, but
that's a really good one, though.
I don't think there's ever been a comment better, if you know what I mean.
That's a good one.
Like, that's just spot on. This one from Joe DeMeo before. There's a better chance that I'm the manager, Ibby's the pitching coach, and John is the hitting coach than Stearns ever hires someone like Dusty Baker, LOL, which is very fair.
Yeah.
Carson saying, we know these players like Mendoza. They like him a lot. In fact, they don't respect him, and his consistent message is why. I mean, like, we're not there, but
get him tomorrow. Get him tomorrow. Then you become very. All right, I'll give him tomorrow, I guess.
It's just a blasé, like, all right, okay. Lazy Mary, Mendoza's roller coaster is as up and down as Noah Syndergaard's hairline. Bro. Noah Syndergaard, my guy. What do you? No, that's
it's time to cut it, man. It's time to cut it.
Cut it. Or he made enough money. Get plugs, dude. Yeah,
seriously.
No one has seen him in public for like a year and a half.
It's true.
He should have got hair plugs,
Yeah.
or don't, and just shave it, or for the love of God, just get a different haircut. Or I don't know what the other side looks like. Part the hair the other way. I have a far back hairline. I always have. And I'm getting older, and it's probably a bit weaker than it was. My hairline has always been pretty far back. And I know that you are, you don't have hair. So,
yeah, I don't. Yeah.
But it's
Not
just
pretty.
like, dude, what is that? That is like the worst. It's the worst combination of looks. This is very funny.
Yeah.
Fox News hairline. Villain, Lazy Mary, send that man to Turkey. Like, yo, for real. How are you going to be out of the public eye for that long and not get hair plugs? Fucking John Cena was wrestling every 2 months with the worst hair ever.
Oh my God.
While trying to get hair plugs. Noah Syndergaard, like, dude, I'm sorry. That is bad. It's a bad look. It is just it's a really bad look. I'm not trying to come at the follically challenged here, but like there's like a way to do that gracefully, and he's made every mistake.
every man that is hair challenged, if you will, gets to a point where they have to accept things or do things or say, I'm going to change things. I think it's time for Noah to realize that it's time to either plug it up if you want to stay the way you are, or go short-haired Thor. You look better that way anyway. So,
yes, that's all we can say about that. We are at just about an hour. Why don't we head into the break? Because when we come out of the break, we'll change gears a little bit. I think it's very clear how me and Ibby still feel about Carlos Mendoza, despite the fact that the Mets are on a bit of an uptick. I move for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership, to quote Natalie Portman in The Phantom Menace. But so Ibby is in lockstep as far as that's concerned. But I don't want to spend the entire show talking about Carlos Mendoza. We do have some other people, players specifically, that we need to address. So if you're watching live for the first time, don't go anywhere. It is just a quick 30-second break that we need to reset the show. And like Ibby said, hit the like while we are in that break if you haven't already. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, live on Substack. We will be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, live on Substack, like we are each and every single week. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, plus all of you here in the live comments. And the comments have been absolutely great, Ibby, not just from a funny standpoint, but also from a, informational, just like knowledge of the game. Like, we always talk about how we can't do what we do without our show, the way our show has evolved and what our show has become. It's not the same without the live comments. And yes, a part of that is the fact that we can kind of let things get a little unhinged and we like to have fun here on the show. But the real genesis of that was people just also providing good questions, good commentary. And look, when you have people like, Joe Prano, who knows ball, and Joe DeMeo, who's obviously got a great show, Carson, who's got a great show, you expect that, but it's from everybody. Like everybody here, whether we agree or disagree with the opinions, the folks here, like they know their Mets. Let's put it that way.
Of course.
And, so it's just great to see comments come through, not just the funny ones. The funny ones are great. We could all have a laugh at Noah Syndergaard's expense and the fact that, like, if you're that rich, maybe just hire a stylist or at least like have a friend tell you what's up, for the love of God. But anyway, I say all of that because the best way to fully participate in our show weekly is here in the live stream, where your comments and your questions and your jokes and everything else come in real time. But if you can't do that, you can go back and you can watch the replay as soon as we are done with the live show. It'll live on YouTube, on Twitter and on Substack forever and ever and ever. And if you don't have the opportunity to do that, we've got you covered on the audio side as well. This show will drop by tomorrow morning, wherever it is you get your podcast. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Ibby, I am no longer going to say within a few hours of the show that we are going to have the audio out, because there's a couple of factors. One, the Mets game starts, which splits our attention. Two, I don't want to let people in so much on the inside baseball portion of this, but Ibby does the write-up for the show, for the podcast, and I do the editing and the posting. So I can't do the editing and the posting until I get the write-up, and sometimes Ibby's super quick. Sometimes Ibby's a little bit slower on that, which is fine. That's how it goes. You've got 2 kids at home. I get it. You also want to watch the Mets game, and I have softball on Wednesday nights. So the combination of things makes it very, very difficult, unless everything lines up perfectly, for me to get the edit up and out by Wednesday night. But by Thursday morning, it'll be there with you. So anyway, plus I'm 3 hours behind. So my mornings and your nights and all that stuff are just all on different schedules. Having said all that, Ibby, before we get back into the conversation, let's go ahead and hit them with a quick word from our friends over at Independent Safes.
Absolutely, John. IndependentSafes.com. Independent Safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential commercial safes. Fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And that means it's time for our favorite segment of the week. It is time for somebody to head on over into a safe, and it's time for us to throw away the key. Now, there's a couple of ways that I can go with this one on my end this week. I think I'm going to go chalk, and I'll give my secondary one also, but the chalk choice that I'm going to go with, who's going into the safe this week, is Carlos Mendoza, for the constant things that we've talked about over the first half of this show. I think it all applies still. I still have my questions. I'm putting him in there because it should be the moment, as he sits in said safe, as uncomfortable as he can, to really dig deep and find out if he truly wants to make something of this and to be better and to change the body language and to try and dig himself out and to make better decisions. Find that feel, because it's not there. And until I start seeing a progression in that sense, I'm going to be very wishy-washy, very on this team until I see some changes, because he's the one making calls. He's the one doing things within game, and things like that matter. And if you want to be better and you want to get further as a team, as an organization, if you want to play into October and things of that nature, which seems like the furthest thing of this fan base's mindset right now, and I understand why, because of the hole that they've been put in. But remember, when you get to that type of baseball, managing matters. Making the right calls matters. And we're all very much questioning this person. So I'm putting him in there because it's time for him to think about what he's done and for him to think about what he wants to do moving forward. The other person I thought about putting in real quick would have been John Harper. Main reason I'm putting a name out there, because the tweets that he'd been putting out recently, I thought that they were very, very baiting in a sense, where he was nitpicking a lot of things and trying to dig up more and be more negative, in the sense when the Mets were playing some better baseball, but the things he was nitpicking I thought was kind of shitty. So I thought about putting him in, but I'm sure there'll be a point where I can actually put him in 100%. But for today, Carlos Mendoza, you're a bigger part of this team. You got to get it turned around. For that, I'm putting into the safe.
Before I give mine, I'll just pull this up from earlier, right before we started. Lazy Mary said, I broke out of the safe. Turns out it wasn't from independent safes. It was some cheap knockoff. Stick with independent safes if you want your trolls to stay locked in, which I think is going to function, at least for this week, as a second ad read. That is very good.
That's good.
That is very funny. I am actually going to go just to be different and just so that we can get back into the meaningful conversation quicker. I'm going to go with odd villain here. Noah Syndergaard in the safe. I'm going to go with Noah Syndergaard for the hairline. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it for the I want to do something different. We talked about it already.
Yeah.
I don't want to, like, I already picked Carlos Mendoza once. I don't want to pick Carlos Mendoza every week. I don't want to pick Carlos Mendoza when you pick Carlos Mendoza. Like, just add something. And I was already thinking in that direction. And then Odd Villain said it. And I was like, you know what? That's fun. And then also we can kind of put the segment to bed and we can move back to the real baseball. As fun as this segment is, Joe DeMeo says, I've never seen a balder guy with long hair. I mean, I see you and I raise you Hulk Hogan for
I was going to say Hogan.
Life.
Yeah, Hogan,
You know, late WCW Macho Man Randy Savage. A lot of people in wrestling can't let go of that fucking long hair, man. And you're like, bro,
it's time.
It's time. It's time. That's all I can say. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Noah Syndergaard just for the love of the game, honestly.
It works.
This is apropos of nothing, but it made me laugh out loud because Odd Villain is very funny with stuff like this. Carlos Bin Laden. It's so funny to say because it's so much better when you say it out loud than reading it. It's just, this is also a good one. Burnt toast, loose elbow particles in the safe.
Ooh.
I put out a tweet about this yesterday. I do stand by the fact that, man, oh man, Tarek Skubal getting this surgery while on a team that is going to, try to make the playoffs, or at least has in the past with him at the head of the rotation, being the best pitcher in baseball, or one of, if you like a different flavor of starting pitcher, whether it's Crochet or Ohtani or Skeens, whatever. Yeah. Top 5, top 3, top 1 pitcher in baseball, trying to sign a $500 million contract, maybe, or thereabouts. Maybe won't get there, but you know what I mean. Trying to sign the richest contract ever given to a starting pitcher in the history of baseball, heading into a lockout looming free agency, deciding to get this surgery. While Sean Manaea was like, nah, I'm good. And maybe I don't want to ever tell anybody to get surgery because that's a personal decision. And even the most basic routine surgeries can go awry. I understand why guys don't opt to get surgery sometimes, but there's no other way to say this other than this looks really bad on Sean Manaea. It looks like again, I don't know him, and by all accounts, he's a good teammate, what everybody says. This hurts that reputation a little bit as far as I'm concerned. This makes him look like a little bit more like I'm just going to do what's best for me regardless.
I think it's also, I think age matters to an extent too for some of these guys, the stuff that they have, the expectations that they have, the money that they're making or whatever. Like you see guys like obviously Skubal is getting it taken care of and what he's obviously trying to accomplish. You see Edwin Diaz has it getting done. You see Hunter Green with someone earlier in the season is getting it done. And like, I don't know. I just feel like maybe he thinks, I think I talked about it last time. Maybe he thinks that where he is and what he is as a pitcher in general, that this would be like the death blow, if you will, to what he has done. And maybe that's why he refused to do it, which then you could say, yeah, it comes across as a little bit selfish in that sense, but that's baseball in the sense where guys hold on for as long as they possibly can to do something. So I don't know. Like it sucks because if he would have got it done, maybe it would have been different, but maybe he was advised not to because maybe he was told that there's a chance that it could work and there's a chance that you might be done. And maybe he wasn't willing to take that risk. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Maybe with one more year left on his contract, which is a gross thing to say out loud into a microphone. But look, again, it's his body. I want to be clear about that. So like, if he really doesn't want to, I guess what I'm saying is that what I'm about to say, I don't mean literally, but there is an aspect of this that is true. If things continue to go the way that they are going for Sean Manaea in this season, with one more year left on his deal, doesn't he kind of owe it to the Mets to get the surgery and see if he can be better? Again, not in a literal sense, because again, it's his body.
One could say that too, yeah.
But you're sitting here, you've now collected, let's say, $50 million while not being very good, and you've got another 25, and maybe you should just get it and see what happens. Armand did say Mad Dog Russo in the safe. that was a good one too for the really dumb thing he
Yeah,
said.
who cares about him going
about-
to the Knicks game? Who cares? He's hurt.
Yeah, just listen.
He
I
didn't
said
hop
to
on
somebody
a plane to go. Well, after the game ended. Come on.
I said to somebody on Twitter that like he comes up with his analysis like Mad Libs. Like he just picks like Francisco Lindor goes to game while on IL, like just pulls things down like just for a reason to be mad. So complete nonsense. Armand throwing Shawn Michaels before he went fully bald in the long hair bald guy category, and Game for War with another good poll. Andre Agassi.
It's another good one.
Another good one. So there's definitely some worse looks than Syndergaard, but I don't love where Syndergaard's at. Odd Villain calling Sean Mania the tribal thief, which again, a lot of wrestling references here today, Abby, but that one is good. From tribal chief to tribal thief, in terms of the money and the contract. Yep. It's very good. It's another very good comment. Anyway, let's change gears. Let's talk about Mark Vientos. Last week was as harsh as I've ever been on Mark Vientos. I've been a supporter of his through his deficiencies. I'm not sitting here saying the guy was, some kind of superstar player, but the guy clearly has shown some flashes where he can do a lot offensively. And I have always been a supporter and a believer in that. And last week I was all about done with Mark Vientos. And in the week since, he has put up some really gaudy numbers, things that should be even better. I mean, the guy 2 games ago, he should have been 4 for 4 with 2 home runs,
2 homers,
7 RBI. I mean, he was really like locked in and just the victim of some unfortunate batting average on balls in play luck, right? But Ibby, this is who Mark Vientos is, right? Like we talk about Carlos Mendoza being a guy who's been more bad than good as a manager with the Mets. If you look at Mark Vientos outside of not even outside of what he did in 2024 was just an extended hot streak. It lasted months and it was great, but otherwise in his career, he's been the kind of hitter that can get hot for a month. He did it last August. And then for a month or 2 or 6 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, he then can just, like a light switch, look like a guy who can't hit at all. So am I mad at Vientos still? I am, because it's disappointing and he's frustrating, the stuff he says, the way he carries himself. But right now, the bigger thing is, can he continue this hot streak and carry the team alongside Juan Soto for a little bit? And the answer is, as a Mets fan, I hope so. Because the Mets need him to. The Mets with Slater and Ibanez and all these other guys on Brujan on the roster, they need Mark Vientos to be at least Mark Vientos in August of 2025, if not the 2024 version of Vientos.
Yeah, I think it was Joe who said it. Joe and Connor, obviously on the Mets pod, saying how the need for this type of Mark Vientos, helps this team so much because it lacks power and he can provide it. And the numbers over the last handful of weeks, I have them right here for Vientos. A slash line of 294, 368, 529, 2 homers, 8 RBIs with a 154 weighted runs created plus. Like, obviously that's great. You want that plugged in, and that does a lot for your lineup, and it adds a little bit more depth and adds a little bit more of a terror, if you will. I think majority of those numbers have come over the last week, but like you said, like some of the things that could have had, those numbers could even be better if the ball was carrying a little bit more on those days. If it's a different month, they're probably gone, and these numbers are even higher. So look, we were harsh on him last week. I think it was warranted. I still hate that, it takes, especially in this market, it's because it's noticed a lot more. It takes for someone to be playing at a scorching rate for them to be the person that they should be, regardless of what their numbers are. Like, you got to carry yourself in a certain way. Expectations are put on you. You're given your starting position for the New York Mets. Like, your bat is expected to be something. Like, don't have that shitty body language. Don't talk out of your ass when it comes to certain situations when the team is playing bad. Like, I still have those issues when it comes to Mark, because you have to be better. And I don't think I can really say he's a kid. Like, I know obviously he's younger than me, but like, I feel like you've been here long enough. You should be getting this. Lose that baby Met dumb moniker already. Like, get rid of that. Like, you have been here. You have expectations put on you. Be better. He's playing better now. He's all smiles. He's all this. He's all that. He's wearing the hat. He's wearing the vest. Like, all that stuff is great. Can you still be this type of player moving forward? Can you carry yourself a little bit better? Can you be more of a good teammate and a professional when things don't go as great, when you're trying to get yourself out of a rut? Like, I'm still looking for those things. But for the last week, fantastic. Good to see. Clearly powered by Grimace still. But I think you need to continue this evolution. We saw this previously. It's been a long time now. Can he do it again where he is able to reset and do things because other people figured him out? Is he back to going that back and forth way of like, you do this, well, now I'm going to learn and do better with this? I don't know. I still have my hesitation on it. I still wonder, like, they'll never do it, but like, is this the moment you cash in on a Mark Vientos? It's never going to happen. They're not trading him. That's not what I'm saying. It's just something I wish that would maybe cross their mind, but it's not going to happen. So all in all, it's great to see. It's helping right now for sure. But, will he be able to continue it? We'll find out.
Pantry said this earlier. Happy for Vientos. Still don't trust him. I think that's very fair. And then just some bigger picture looks really quickly from Pantries and some other folks. Happy we won some games, but we're still an insanely bad offensive team. Also still hashtag fire Mendoza.
It's fair.
Yeah, look, and then you have Ethan, offense is putrid. It's this team is cooked, zero accountability, zero urgency, the same dysfunctional organization.
Using that as just to go to our poll real quick. Vibes check. How are we feeling, Mets fans? 42 votes so far. If you haven't already, make sure that you vote because I want to get these numbers at the end completed. But the three options, turning it around, is at 31%. This team still stinks, is at 45%. Whatever, is at 24%. So clearly this fan base right now is still very much don't really care / this team isn't that good. So it's good to see some winning, but that gives you an overarching view right now, at least, of where the fan base still sits.
Yeah, and we'll get into that larger topic kind of before we get out of here, but I do want to keep it on the offense just for a moment. Like even Joe DeMeo says, this offense has been such ass. They've resorted to sacrifice bunting. It's absolutely vile. Kind of back when we were talking about MJ Melendez, but I just keeping it with like Vientos and the offense. Ibby, right now, like I said before I tossed it to you, the Mets need Mark Vientos. In the first half, we talked about guys getting thrusted into duty every day, like bigger roles, right? Vidal Brujan shouldn't even be on the major league roster. He has to be. We get that. Yeah. Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty, Vientos, I guess, to a lesser degree over the last week, but these are guys who shouldn't necessarily be playing every day. They have to play every day. They just have to. There's no other choice right now until players start coming back healthy. So I am rooting for Mark Vientos to keep this hot streak going for as long as possible until some players get back healthy. Having said that, I'm happy that you mentioned the thought process of trading him. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
No.
I'm not going back on what I said last week. I'm happy that Vientos is doing this. The Mets need him to do this. This is the player that they need him to be right now. And as a Mets fan, I am happy and I am grateful. But the attitude that he has shown even amidst this, I am ready for Vientos to be off this team. And whether that happens at the trade deadline as part of a deal that gets you a guy like Christian Walker, I don't know, right? Like a better fit. Or that happens in the offseason or whatever. I am ready to move on. I like what he's shown. Again, the Mets need it. And as a Mets fan, I am happy, but I am ready for it to be over with Mark Vientos. I don't think his attitude is good for this team. And somebody said this earlier about Vientos and Mendoza, and just to bring the conversation full circle. Look, I don't think Vientos and Mendoza is a good mix. I don't think a lack of accountability manager and a guy who shows a propensity to not hold himself accountable is good. And I just need this I need this. I want this bad taste to be out of my mouth. Like when it comes to these guys who I don't think are winning players and I don't think are winning managers and coaches and whatever. And to me, Vientos is part of that. Good, bad, or, fair or unfair.
Which brings up a another part of the conversation, which we have in the scroll here, talking about the homegrown Mets that come into question. Like, we're talking about Vientos now, and we can make this quick because I don't think it's that long of a convo. But like, you look at the rest of the guys that were given expectations coming into the season, a lot of us thought could do something, and we're seeing Vientos do something right now, even though it's been very rough for him to this point. But it brings forth what John was just saying, is like, are these winning ball players? And we're talking about Vientos, and we're talking about Beatty, and we're talking about David Peterson. And Beatty has been rough. We're talking about Peterson, who has been rough outside of his last start, which he had the opener for. And then Francisco Alvarez, man, like, it's gotten to a point, and shout out to Luis Torrens for getting his 2-year extension. And I joked over in the Mets Weekly chat, and with some other people, saying how the Mets have one catcher, and that catcher is Luis Torrens. Like, if you're asking me what bat would I rather have up, when I got to try to maybe hit a home run, it's like, yeah, sure, Alvarez, whatever. But overall, to this point, Alvarez, like, it's been maddening to watch him behind the plate. The constant missed balls, the laziness, and it brings forth the question, is this someone that is meant for this team? Is he part of what's going to be going on for the good moving forward? Like, I don't know. To me, I don't know how you feel, John. I know you've been a strong advocate of Alvarez as a piece for this team, but this season to this point, in a year we all thought would be this huge jumping off point for him, no more Chavez and things like that, I just feel like we've seen a step back defensively, more lazy. And it's, I can point out things where it's like, if you're behind the plate and Noel McLean is shaking you off 5 times, and then he decides to just throw a meatball of a pitch because he's just trying to get the pitch off in time with the pitch clock, like, to me, that's an issue. You want to call it miscommunication, what have you, not on the right page in that moment, fine, I'll let it slide. But then we have the end of the game, and I'm taking away all the pass balls in between. You go to the end of the game, and you got Jerry Blevins in the post game. Love Jerry. Jerry was 1,000% right on this, saying how Austin Warren has to bury a slider in that spot, and he couldn't bury it, and he couldn't bury it, and he couldn't bury it. And I'm sitting there saying, maybe he could have buried it if he actually trusted his catcher. Because if he buries it earlier in the count and it's a pass ball, game's over. Like, so things like that, I feel, might be creeping into a pitcher's mind as to why he can't bury a pitch, because he doesn't trust his catcher. Because from what we've seen to this point, Alvarez has been piss poor behind the dish.
Alvarez, you already said this. I've been the biggest supporter of his. Yeah. More so than Vientos. Like, I mean, just the caliber of prospect. And part of that is grading on a curve because he's a catcher. Just is what it is. Now, good defensive catcher, bad defensive catcher, mediocre defensive catcher. The value that he offers positionally with the pop that he has potentially is something that is still hard to give up on.
It's tantalizing. It is.
Now, having said that, I don't think he's as bad defensively as he has shown so far this season. And I think Joe said that on the Mets pod, and I cannot agree more. However, that doesn't really matter because he's been so bad this season that it's been frustrating. Also, if you're going to be that bad defensively, you have to start doing it offensively, which he has not shown the ability to do with any consistency at all. I will continue to grade on a curve for a bit longer, Ibby, because if Lindor is healthy, Polanco is healthy, and even Robert is healthy, and you start to put together a representative team, and Benge is continuing to take the steps forward that he's been taking over the last couple of weeks, and we'll talk about Benge in a minute. Unlike Beatty, who, right now is your everyday third baseman, unlike Vientos, who needs to hit to play because he's a bad defensive player, full stop. Alvarez at catcher, mediocre at both offense and defense, is still, adjusted for the league and the position, a valuable player to have on your team.
Mhm.
But he's a valuable player to have on your team hitting 7th or 8th or 9th, not 3rd or 4th or 5th. You see where I'm going with this? So I think I'm willing to go a little bit longer with him than I am with Beatty, with Vientos, even Mauricio now at this point, because
Right. I forgot about him.
I really like Mauricio, and it's unfortunate that injuries have derailed any kind of consistency in his baseball life, whether it was the ACL or now this broken thumb, which sucks. It's kind of self-inflicted in a way, whatever. It is what it is. He was
I
trying
don't think
to
it's going to happen here for him. Yeah.
It's not going to happen here for him.
No.
David Peterson, I don't like. I'm ready to move on from him. Odd Villain says that he would trade all of them, all of this young crop.
Not getting
of
much.
Mets.
Yeah.
The one guy that I would continue to hold on to right now is Alvarez. And again, I acknowledge I'm grading on a curve. I acknowledge that part of that is positional value. And when you factor in the way his defense has been this season and how inconsistent his defense has been over his career, you start to erode that curve even a bit more. But I am going to continue. I am willing to ride that out a bit longer. To me, the other guys have less of a leash than Alvarez, but even Alvarez's leash for me is getting shorter, because
yeah.
I'll turn this into a larger conversation, Ibby. When people say, hey, David Stearns has got to go, and you and I say, well, wait, hold on. Not yet. Not yet. One of the reasons why, I don't want to speak for you, one of the reasons why I say not yet is because the output of the major league team has not been good from David Stearns. But let's see what happens with Carson Benge. I want to see what happens with AJ Ewing. I want to see what happens, even with guys that Stearns didn't draft directly. I want to see what happens with guys who have had most of their development occur under the David Stearns front office. Ryan Clifford, Jonah Tong, Jack Wenninger. Pick your person, pick your player, your pitcher. If these guys pan out more so, and I don't mean superstars, Ibby, just valuable major leaguers, because now, Alvarez, not a valuable major leaguer. Vientos, not a valuable major leaguer. Beatty, not a valuable major leaguer. Peterson, not a valuable major leaguer. If these guys pan out better than that crop of guys, I am going to give Stearns more leeway. I know he has to do a better job at the major league level. Right now, it's like, yeah, sign Soto, great. Try for Yamamoto and miss. Okay, whatever. Those guys you identified, you got one, you damn near got the other one. Great job. He gets all the credit in the world for Clay Holmes. And then there's been a lot of other up and down, more bad than good on the major league level. But if some of these guys pan out and become legitimate major league contributors, the way I think Benge is on his way to, and the way I think AJ Ewing can really be, and you start to really see that there is a new crop of winning players coming up through the organization without even mentioning Nolan McLean, then I'm willing to see if David Stearns can continue to learn a little bit about major league free agents and operating with the big budget and running the team that he grew up rooting for. So I know that some people are going to disagree with that take, but part of my defense of Stearns has to do with exactly what we're talking about. This old crop of, and I hate the expression too, quote unquote, baby Mets. I'm ready to move on for the most part. You could sell me on moving on from all of them, including Alvarez. I got to see, in terms of organizational stability and building a framework that makes sense and a pipeline that works. And you can't do that going from Jared Porter to Zach Scott to Sandy Alderson to Billy Epler to David Stern. How many people have run the Mets decision-making, the drafting, the development since Cohen has taken over? You have to have some continuity. And for the first time, I believe in this pipeline of players. And I know I've been shouting it out a lot, but probably because I just listened to the episode. Joe DeMaio said this. You go back to a player like Mark Vientos, he was high in the Mets prospect rankings because they
didn't
had
have anything. Yeah.
The Mets now, you look every year, they got 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys that are top prospects for them, that are top 100 prospects, top 50 prospects, top 20 prospects. Carson Benge is like a fringe top 10 prospect. He's on every top 15 list, every top 20 list, creeping into some top 10 lists. Like, that matters. Now, look, most of these guys aren't going to pan out. I told you, 80-something% of prospects never even make the major leagues.
Yeah.
But you have to start to develop some continuity. And so I know that's a lot to throw at you in one sitting, but that's where some of my defensive David Stearns comes from. It's the lack of belief in this former crop of prospects and the belief in what the next generation needs to do to actually be like, I don't even want to say like the Dodgers, Ibby, like a fucking baseball team that does things well.
I think everything you said is very much in line with how I feel, and it's furthering the depth conversation of, people questioning said depth, and it's like there's only so many guys you can sign and whatnot. You're going to allow things to play out, and we're seeing right now that those Mets, those homegrown Mets that are on the Major League roster, are not really providing. And I go back to what we talked about last year when it came to the one phone call away, when all of those guys got promoted to AAA. It's like we're getting to a point where, your livelihood, your shelf life, I should say, of being a part of this team is very much in question for anybody that's on the roster outside of, like the Sotos and the Lindors, obviously. And in this case, Bichette. But like everyone else, like you're pretty much on watch because of the players that are coming through the system. And you have to allow those players to come through said system and see what they can do, because if those pan out, then that's what gets David Stearns the leash that he's looking for to extend and be here longer and give you what you as a Met fan want, which is sustainability. But you have to see that through. And everyone's going to say, well, you can't because you're not getting what you want at the major league level. And all we care about is the major league level. And I get that. This is entertainment. You watch this team because you want to watch the Mets win. You don't want to watch or care about whatever's going on behind the scenes. You want to watch good product. And based off of the votes that we have right now, it is not a good product. And I would agree with you. The sad part is and people aren't going to like when I say this. They're not going to like it at all. But it just goes to show you that this franchise was never ever going to be a quick fix for anybody. I still believe that they are working through some things and they have to see if it pans out. Now, is it going to? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it is because I don't know. But I do think you got to wait and see if those players pan out from the Stern standpoint to see if what he's implementing down there can translate up here. We're seeing it with Carson Benge right now. We're seeing what Noel McLean under the umbrella can do. We're seeing how, you hope that what Christian Scott did his last start can translate and continue moving forward. You want to see the Winningers, the Santucci's, the Thorntons, all these guys, Tong. You want to see these guys come through. Is it going to work? We'll find out. But I do think that to bring it all back, those homegrown Mets, every Met fan is so hell-bent on homegrown players. But when it comes to these guys, they're very willing to say adios, which again is a good thing. It's progress, if you will, for a fan base. But I really think that the one phone call away rings very true for those 4 players that we mentioned. And I think it speaks volumes that they were willing to give the extension also to Terrence to really realize that defensively, we have to have someone on this roster that can do this, because if something happens with Alvarez and we have to cut bait or whatever, at least we got a defender back there. Like, I don't know. That's just kind of where I am. Maybe I haven't seen the comments if they're hating that I'm defending Stearns or not, but that's kind of the way I look at it from the non-emotional standpoint, trying to see every possible angle. I might be 100% wrong. John might be wrong in the end, but that's just, I think, looking at it in a calm, overarching manner and realizing that there was still a lot wrong, and you gave the chance, you gave time, and something that we've always said, when Stearns speaks, listen to certain aspects. And when he had said that, even though this is New York, he said this 2 years ago now, we have to allow players to try and figure things out. I think that they're trying that and it's not working, and you're seeing the results. And that's why his feet are closer to the fire now, because you tried this, you gave the time, it failed. It's New York, it's not Milwaukee. Now you got to pivot potentially and try to make it work because people are angry and they want the entertainment. You got to deliver on that.
And I do just want to be clear. I've said this a million times on the show. I don't want to offend Joe DeMeo when I say this. I don't care about homegrown players. I don't care about prospects. I think it's fun. I think it's like, what I mean by I don't care is I don't care where the winning comes from. I don't think
you want good ball players.
I just want good ball players. I know all about asset allocation. I understand the fact that, you've got money and you've got prospects, and that's the capital that you work with. And that's how you put a team together. I'm the guy you just described. I don't watch a lot of like minor league baseball. I watch the Mets. Now I watch some minor league baseball here and there. Maybe I'll watch clips, or maybe if the Mets are off, I'll pop on a Syracuse game and watch Tong pitch for 5 innings and then I'll turn it off, whatever. But like, I'm not watching. I am the person you just described who wants the product at the major league level to be entertaining. And so I say all that to say, I'm not naive to the fact that this is New York and that eventually GMs and presidents of baseball ops like keep and lose their jobs based on the success of the major league team, not the success of the pipeline. I understand all of that. And I am not asking you who are listening and watching to have any more patience than I myself would have as somebody who wants to just really watch the Mets. It's just, to your point, that's the realistic nature of what we're looking at. You have to allow for some continuity. I don't want everybody to come up and be a star so that we could be like the Milwaukee Brewers. First of all, not everybody who comes up is going to be a star. And I don't want to be like the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't even want to be like the Dodgers. I just want the Mets to be competent. I want them to be competent in the money they give out, in the players they develop, in the players they draft, in the coaches they hire. I've seen some good since Cohen has taken over. I've seen my share of bad. We all have. I've seen some good since Stearns took over. I've seen some bad. We all have. I'm just saying that part of my defense of him is just understanding that organizations that are smart need smart people at the top building the whole organization, which is why I started this earlier from Brian, who says Stearns is the right president of baseball ops, but he's not the right GM. And I know people have been clamoring for this in my mentions on Twitter. They've been saying it sometimes in the comments here, Ibby. I do think that what's going to happen, win, lose, or draw at the end of this season, unless it's a complete clusterfuck and they lose 100 games and Stearns probably at that point should be fired. If the Mets fall short of where they want to be, or if the Mets go on a run and win the third wild card and make it to the playoffs and win a couple rounds or whatever, I think in the offseason, Stearns needs to hire a GM. I know he's been hesitant. I know he says he doesn't need one. I don't think that's going to make things better, like flipping a light switch. But I think another voice in there, somebody to just oversee the major league team while Stearns is the overarching view, I think that makes sense. I really do. I mean, you see it. I'll just pull from another medium, right? Like when The Walking Dead became a shared universe, Scott Gimple, who was the showrunner for the series, was elevated to like executive content officer or whatever the hell title is. Basically, Scott Gimple became the Kevin Feige. He oversees the entirety of the shared universe. And Angela Kang, who worked on the show since basically the beginning, became the new showrunner. Because It's a lot of work to ask one person to do both of those jobs. I would say it's impossible to ask one person to do both of those jobs. That's why Kevin Feige's job is separate. That's why James Gunn's job is separate. That's why Scott Gimple's job was separate. And they were overarching and they were looking over the entirety of the, in this case, organization that they were building. I think that's what David Stearns needs to do. And I think you need to have a GM that works a little bit more on the like, hey, you know, we're going to just pop Luis Robert on the IL right now because I don't want to play a man down. And that's what we're going to do. That's not a big sweeping fucking change. Put him on the IL. Now, if you put him on the IL and you're trying to call up AJ Ewing, yeah, that's a conversation you have to have with David Stearns. Organizationally, is he ready? What does that mean? Starting the clock. Fine. But if you're going to put Luis Robert on the IL for 10 days and call up, you know, a guy to just fill the spot and he'll be back in 10 or 11 days, somebody else can make that call. I'm not saying Stearns doesn't know about it, but you know what I'm getting at. So, I think there is something to be said here about a change in the organizational philosophy that allow for Stearns to have a little less on his plate while doing what I think makes a lot of sense, which is building this pipeline.
Yeah, I agree in that sense. And I'm sorry, I'm just confused by Rosie. I'm just reading your comment here, trying to get an idea. According to Madden, Stearns doesn't listen to coaches, etc. So here we are. He does things his way, period. Which Madden are we talking about here?
If it's Bill, listen, I gotta be honest. If it's Bill Madden, that guy,
that freaking guy,
that dude is like, I don't like, not
that guy.
He's like,
because my mind
retirement.
My mind went right to Joe Madden. I'm like, but he never worked with Joe Madden. Like that's where my mind went right away.
No, it's got to be Bill Madden, who used to work for the Post or whatever, the Daily News.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I was just getting confused by that one. But no, I mean when it comes to it is Bill Madden. Okay, yeah, thank you, I'm easy. No, I mean when it comes to all that's going on with this team and how he's trying to build and things of that nature, like you just bring up Carson Benge. We've been mentioning his name. I mean, over his last 11 games, 303, 361, 545 slash line, 2 doubles, 2 homers, and countless catches. Fantastic defense. They're doing it right with him. If there's one thing I can say, and I can use this as my way of wrapping things up when it comes to the overall feel of the Mets right now, to me, if I was to answer the question of our poll, vibes check, how we feel Mets fans, either turning it around, this team still stinks, or whatever. Right now, I am in the camp of whatever. And that's mainly because I'm seeing some good, but I still see a lot of bad. So I'm kind of like I'm here, I'm watching, but it's like I still don't have like the feeling that I want. You know what gives me feeling though when I watch these games? And mind you, I'm thinking more from the offensive standpoint. I get feelings obviously when Nolan's pitching or Clay's pitching. Like I feel something when those guys are on the bump because they've been doing so well. But like really feel something on the everyday, it's Carson Benge. And obviously like everyone knows I love Juan Soto, but like he's been hurt. He's getting things back. He's still doing fantastic. That's Juan Soto. I think he goes without saying, but like for me to like really feel on this team right now, even with the record that they have, it's Carson Benge. Because to me, that right there is something that this team desperately needs and has needed for a long time. It's that youthful exuberance. It's a guy that's going out there with that backyard baseball mentality of diving everywhere and making catches and has a cannon for an arm and is doing everything he can, even though he's learning how to become a better hitter and become more patient at the plate. He never took it out to the field and affected his defense. He went out there every single day to this point, every time his name's on that chart that he's going to be playing, busting his ass and providing a spark for this team any way that he can. So when I see Carson Benge making that progression, that is also a nod to David Stearns and, being patient in a sense with a player, not doing the quick trigger thing of getting rid of him because he had shown flashes. It's like he's getting closer. You trust the pedigree, and it's starting to come out more and more as those stats I just alluded to, what he's been doing at the dish over the last handful of weeks. The overall numbers, you're kind of like, this isn't that great. But if you're watching the games, he is a reason to be excited, and he is a part of this future moving forward. So all in all, I'm still very on this team. I hope that by the time we record next week, my feelings change. And it's more than just me getting a feeling when it comes to Carson Benge. But that's kind of where I am right now when it comes to the New York Mets.
It's hard to argue with anything that you said. I will say this, and shout out Ryan Finkelstein for this. He basically did a show that he put out this morning, Locked on Mets, where it was like 5 reasons why you would still believe in the New York Mets. And one of them maybe was just, and some things people don't want to hear, right? Like I understand that. And he acknowledged that as well, but they do have a lot of talent. Now, they had a lot of talent last year and they didn't make the playoffs. So it's not a foregone conclusion, but they do have a lot of talent. And eventually you would think that that talent will start to play, even if not at the pinnacle of what they're capable of, more representative towards what they're capable of, which to this point they haven't. I do believe in that because it's May 6th. It's not August 6th. It's not even June 6th. We haven't hit Memorial Day yet. The other thing that he mentioned, which I also agree with, is, I guess, part and parcel with that, it's time. It's May 6th. I know it's been bad. I know that I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's early. I don't mean to say it like that. But again, there's just too many games. And with the addition of the third wild card, teams make the playoffs with 82 wins, 83 wins, 85 wins, 89 wins. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Teams make the playoffs when they were out of it way later than this, Ibby. This is bad. It's as bad of a start as you could have. But what's the difference between realistically, what's the difference with having this start and having this happen in June or July? The exact same thing. There really isn't a difference. Like, it feels worse, and I understand why it feels worse. It's worse for the players. It's worse for Stearns. It looks worse for Cohen. It looks worse for Mendoza. 100%. It is very hard to dig yourself out of a hole when you dig yourself in so early, so deep. I get it. But Ibby, last year was the exact opposite of this. They had the best record in baseball through 70 games or whatever it was, 60-something games. They didn't make the playoffs. So I can't, it's just too early for me to give up. So I am with you in the sense where it's like, I'm kind of because they haven't done enough for me to truly buy in. I don't believe in Brett Beatty. I don't believe in David Peterson. I don't believe in Carlos Mendoza.
And it's against bad teams too. To this
yes,
point.
And I think a team that is rostering Slater and Ibanez and Wagaman and whomever else, Bruhan and this guy and that guy, that is not good enough. So I am with you. They got to get closer to 500. They got to start to feel it. They got to start to really do it against better teams. 100%. But when people get in my mentions on Twitter and they say, blah, 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 like I said yesterday, unexpected day off, the Mets should extend Clay Holmes, just amusing. Like they should see if he was interested. And people are like, no, they should trade him at the deadline. I don't want to talk about selling at the deadline on May 6th.
No, I can't buy into that.
3 wild cards with teams that make the playoffs 1 game over 500. I can't. I won't. It doesn't make sense. So if I'm just doing it based on purely a numbers game and playing percentages, and that's not something that people want to do and they think I'm wrong for doing that, fine. But Ibby, the percentages right now, and this may change. You're right. I might be wrong. But the percentages are in my favor right now. The Mets have too much talent and too many games left and blah, 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 blah. And too many teams make it and too many teams stay in the race longer. I can't talk about selling. I can't be like, this team is done. I can't. Now, look, they played in my backyard last week. They played in Anaheim Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I joked that I was probably going to be stupid enough to go to one of those games. I didn't, because I didn't want to sit in traffic to go watch that team play. I didn't want to pay money to watch that team play, even though it wasn't going to go to the Mets no matter what I did. I didn't want to take time out of my day and change my schedule and rearrange my day. And you know, like, my girlfriend's a Mets fan too, but I didn't want to, like, you know, oh, let's go down, let's watch the Mets. Like, we didn't want to do it. And because I'm blacked out here, because there's too close proximity wise in Anaheim to watch them on the package, and I don't have cable, I just have all streamers and stuff. I didn't even watch those games. I just watched the highlights. I listened to a little bit on the radio if I was in the car, whatever. So, like, I'm not even sitting there like, oh my God, you got to watch every game. You got to be locked in. They're going to turn it around. I don't believe that's going to happen. I don't believe, like, I'm not saying that that's the thing. I'm just saying it's too early to be like, this team's cooked, sell off this guy, sell off that guy. Like, that's foolish to do on May 6th.
Yeah, I think it's
too much beyond the pale for me.
Yeah, I think it's too early to be having conversations about who's getting dealt, or me seeing articles today. Like, I don't care for, you know, The Athletic when it comes to Jim Bowden. So when I see him talking about Freddie Peralta, like, I can't read that. I refuse to read that. I love Robert Murray. I think he's fantastic. But when I see him putting out today, like, Clay Holmes, at least he prefaced it by saying, like, Clay Holmes could be something that is dealt if the Mets continue to bottom out. At least he prefaced it that way, and it wasn't so more of like a foregone conclusion with like Bowden. But I can't talk about trading people right now because there's still too much time. And I know someone in the comments just said, like, the amount of winning that they would have to do moving forward to make the playoffs to reach X amount of wins, meaning like 80 something wins, is going to be like a 600 win percentage. Do you think this team can do that? And it's like, well, it's a tall task, man. Is it possible? Sure. But I think that's why I come back to my, I'm watching, hope with a hopeful eye. But as we all know, you know, hope isn't a strategy either.
Yeah, but also, like, again, I don't want to tell anybody how to fan. It's just like, it'd be like, some people are optimistic, some people are pessimistic, some people are one, but they think they might be the other, right? But like they think they're positive, but like the way they talk kind of makes them seem like they're a bit more negative, whatever. It's just like, we all love baseball. We all love the Mets. On May 6th, to just write off a baseball season where a team that has this much talent on it, albeit a lot of it is injured and some of it is underperforming, a team that has this many resources in terms of financial and prospects and stuff, it's foolish to do. That would be my message. It's not a message of hope. It's just a message of math. Like Rosie says, I hope you're right about a turnaround, but the talent they're putting on the field every day is not good enough to do that. That's true right now. I mean, Polanco and Lindor and Robert and they're not dead.
I guess the biggest thing there, and Rosie, you can correct me if I'm wrong where you're coming from. It's like between the talent that they're running out now and when you're going to get these players back, you still don't know when you're getting a Robert, Polanco, or a Lindor back. And you're running this talent out. Like, everything matters when it comes to your manager as well, and the calls that you're making. If you're going to double down and triple down and stay with Mendoza, well, you better start making the right calls. And when you see calls that were made over the last week, you're kind of like, this is why you're very back and forth. This is why the thumbnail this week is a roller coaster. You're very up and down, and everybody's screaming, and everyone's trying to figure things out. And it's fun one minute, and then it's a nightmare the next, and you think you're going to fall off the track. Like, all of these things. And it's like, maybe that's why people are very apprehensive when it comes to a potential turnaround, because you're like, well, look who's leading the squad. And it's a guy we spent the whole first half of the show questioning if he can actually do it. So I understand apprehension. I understand why a majority of people say this team stinks. I do, because they see a record where it's, what are we, 13, 14, and 23 or whatever it is. Someone said it in the beginning. They were like, talk to me when this team gets back to 500. And then we can get an idea.
That was Douglas Barnes.
Shout out to you, Doug. Like, talk to me when this team gets back to 500, and then we can see and have a conversation about what can and can't be. And I think that that's fair. And to throw it back to something John had said years ago, which still remains true, no matter what, every team wins 60 games. Every team loses 60 games. What you do with the remainder is what matters. Will the Mets have enough time to do something with those remaining games to potentially make a difference?
Yeah, and we'll see. And I don't want to beat a dead horse on my point. The last thing I'll say about it is, or the last way I'll try to say it is, I'm not sitting here preaching positivity, Ibby. I'm not trying to sway anybody about how they feel or how they're going to go about, like Odd Villain keeps saying all the things he'd rather do than watch the Mets. Like, yeah, I get that. I understand. But again, just look at it from a math perspective right now. The math is in the favor of, don't write it off completely, because there's too much possibility left. There's too much runway left to land the plane to be worried about, running out of gas. As long as that plane is not
in Newark, New Jersey. As long as that plane is not in Newark, New Jersey. If anybody saw that crazy clip that was going around, that poor guy got hit. That poor guy got hit as he's driving a bakery truck.
That's awful. I did not see that. I know we said we were gonna be less than 2 hours, and but the conversation was really good. So I think this was good. We never really got to this, but I will pull it up. That's the lineup for today. It's the same lineup as 2 days ago. I think it makes sense. I think that lineup is about as
until
smart
they bring in
a
lefty. Until they bring in a lefty.
Right. But I my issue is how he handles Melendez rather than everything else. Everything else in that lineup makes sense to me. Give Soto the most at bats while also giving him protection. The way that you can structure that makes sense. Yeah. Vientos and Melendez, those are your 4 most consistent hitters right now, getting the most at bats. I have no issue with that. And honestly, we talked a lot about Alvarez, the defensive deficiencies. I don't think that you can go ahead and do this every day. But Ibby, if you DH Alvarez and you catch Terens, what you wind up doing is you don't give an at-bat to, you don't give a start to Slater or Ibanez or Brujan. You keep one of those guys out of the lineup, which I think is also important.
This one's rough. Real quick, just bringing this up from Armand saying how Tacoma just pulled. The Mets pulled AJ Minter off his rehab assignment due to left hip discomfort. Not a major setback, but Minter's return is no longer imminent. So that sucks, because that's just another bat, or that's just another arm that is, not here to help us, that we desperately need.
Yeah, because we thought he was going to be back in a couple of days. His clock, that Armand says now he'll get a fresh 30-day rehab clock once he's ready to pitch again. His clock was winding down. I think he had 4 or 5 days left. So his return was imminent. Ibby, they say it's not a big deal. I'll say 2 things, though. Not to be doom and gloom, but his velocity was down, and AJ Minter had, I believe, the same hip surgery that David Peterson had a couple of years ago. So I would worry about it a little bit.
And that could be why, and as Armand says here, that's probably another reason why they signed Perez today, because they get that news and they're probably like, we got to get somebody else potentially moving here that could help us at some point. So, yeah.
I'll add this to the positive column, I suppose. If Minter came back, let's say the setback didn't happen and he came back tomorrow, somebody would have to go down who's been pitching pretty well. So that somebody was probably Austin Warren, because he has options, and that's kind of unfair because Austin Warren's been really good. And to be fair, Ibby, Craig Kimball's been pretty good. So, you probably have to DFA Kimbrel or send down Austin Warren to make room for AJ Minter. And now, if you want to spin this to the positive, that pushes the goalpost back a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is not great. You don't want to see guys hurt, but you know what I mean? It's just,
of course not.
It opens up a different lane. There's a different possibility that exists now. Let's get out of here in a second. We got to do our crown comment. Do you know where you want to go for your crown comment? There are still 10 things starred. I think I left all the joke ones starred. So
I know what mine is. I know what it is already.
Okay. You go ahead and go first. I'll pull up the graphic, and then you can pull up the comment.
Perfect. Sounds good. And I think my crown comment for this week is going to the one and only Odd Villain, who's back with a vengeance. Juan Soto is the leader of D12 right now. He's the lead singer of D12, baby. That's my crowned comment. I thought it was fantastic. I'm with you. It's just a comment that you're like, man, That's a good one. And it makes a ton of sense. And yeah, that one just struck me. There was a lot of funny ones today, but that one just struck me as like, this one gets the crown for me today, for sure.
First time in a long time, there were so many good ones. I just scrolled back through them. But Ibby, for the first time in a long time, I cannot argue with you. Odd Villain.
That's the one.
Juan Soto is the leader of D12 right now. You even said the quote from the song that I was going to reference.
Yeah. What's up, ladies?
Yeah, like that is. I said this before, and maybe that tipped my hand. Maybe it was just good foreshadowing. I don't know. There's been so many good comments on this show in this show's history. So I am not comfortable saying that's the best comment we've ever had, because I don't think that's fair. I just don't know that there's ever been a better comment. That's the flip side of it. You know, it's not the what is it? It's not the communicative property where it cuts both ways. It's like it only So it cuts. That's as good of a comment as we've ever gotten. It's also, listen, I was a stand-up for a long time. Part of that, Ibby, is playing to your audience. And that's
a good one.
Plays to your audience. If you have an audience of 2, it is me and Ibby who gets to pick. We're relatively the same age. We've got similar taste in music, as far as we know, as far as we've talked about. That one hits home. It's good. And it's
a good one.
Fucking accurate.
Yes.
There's just never been a more accurate comment to describe Juan Soto playing on a team with Andy Ibanez, no disrespect to you and your family, Vidal Brujan, Austin Slater, Eric Wagaman, and whoever else the Mets fucking sign off the street this week. So it's a good one. It's a good one.
It's fantastic.
Do you have anything else to say before we get out of here?
No, let's get out of here. We've been here for 2 hours. Fantastic talk, fantastic way of finding out where we as Mets fans stand, obviously between us, getting a chance to talk this week, and what the people that watch the show and be a part of the chat, and getting an idea of, you know, their overall vibes, which I thought was a good question to get out there, which clearly a majority still believe that this team is not that good. And I think that they have to go on a little bit more of a winning streak and really continue to stackpile some wins in order to start changing the overall vibes. Could it be tough with the lineup that they're running out there and the talent that they have? It could be tough, but either way, you got to find a way to win some ball games. There's a lot of ball games left, but I don't want to say it's getting late early, but I will say this: you got to handle business tonight and tomorrow in Colorado. You got to sweep this series. I don't want to say it's like a must, but like really it's a must. Sweep this series, then go to Arizona and handle something with them as well. I know they can hit, but you got to go there and you got to try to win at least 2 out of 3. You got to keep this rolling to try to establish something, because if you don't, we're going to roll into next week's show and we're still going to be, 8-9 games under 500, and the vibes from the people in general are still going to be where they are. You got to start turning it around now.
Tony HVAC saying, great show, guys. Thank you. We appreciate the
Thank you,
love.
brother. Appreciate you.
And I'm not a big basketball guy, but I think this is a good one to go out on. Lazy Mary saying, let's go Knicks. I know not everybody in the chat is going to be a Mets fan and a Knicks fan, but it's a New York show. Let's go Knicks. Why
let's
not?
Go Knicks.
Why not? So
shout out to the orange and blue. There you go.
Shout out to the orange and blue. That said, I'm John. That's Ibby. Hopefully we are as positive as we were this week, if not a bit more, as we get incrementally better baseball along the way. Once we are recording with you guys next week. But win, lose, or draw, good, bad, or ugly, we are going to be here next week on Wednesday to talk about it. Like I said, I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part. We'll see you next week. Peace.